in order to say, we're going to put all the greatest stuff under one roof, that in order to do that in a way that was credible, you had to make sure it was all authentic. Because if it wasn't, you were going to lose credibility and lose trust very, very quickly. And that is also something that's hard to remember now, how insightful and actually disruptive that was, because now people talk a lot about authentication. At that time, nobody was talking about authentication at all. And even to think that that would have been one of the primary reasons that you would sort of lose customers was in and of itself like insightful and kind of surprising.
Wait, what do you mean? You're saying that authentication was something that people were not taking seriously?
It's not that they weren't taking it seriously. It's that they weren't thinking of it as a primary make or break thing. So like, in other words, when you buy something from Net-a-Porter, when you would have bought something from Net-a-Porter, prior to the RealReal, it might not have occurred to you that that thing could be fake or real, right? You might not have said to yourself, like, is this thing fake or real?
You're just assuming that it's real because it's Net-a-Porter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because of the way the markets have gone, because of the way the production of fakes and super fakes have gone, it's not as easy to assume that anywhere anymore. And in 2011, people were not really thinking about that. You took for granted the thing was real. Even from a thrift store, you mostly took for granted it was real unless it looked really like dodgy. You mostly believed that it was real. We are in a different place now in the dynamics of all of that, and the RealReal was far ahead of that curve.
Even with all that being said, the RealReal has been accused, if not caught, for selling fakes. So my first question is, how does something like that happen when the promise is authentication?
We've learned a tremendous amount. We've built a ton of proprietary data. We have 13 years worth of data, worth of images, worth of proprietary information. We've built proprietary tools. We have different tools. We have something called Vision, another thing called Shield. Both of those things are proprietary to the RealReal, developed by us technologically. We have been using AI for a long time in this arena. And there is no chance that it was ever going to be perfect. But it's become better and better and better. And so we have a policy, a very transparent policy. If you ever feel that you've bought something from the RealReal that's fake, or you believe it to be fake, or you think it to be fake, we will take it back. We will re-authenticate it. And if we don't believe that it's real, if it doesn't meet our standards, you will be given a full refund at any time.
I want to talk about the authentication process more because I actually find that to be really interesting. But before we get there, I also want to talk about where we are today. If you guys live in New York City, then you've probably seen at the corner of Broadway and Canal, the RealReal pop-up, which launched this summer, which is full of fakes. Everything around us is a fake. Firstly, whose idea was this?
So we were in a brainstorm. My team was in a brainstorm, and we were talking about how to talk about authentication. Kate, one of our writers, who's fantastic, was like, we should just throw them up in a store on Canal Street. And we were all all of our heads spun to her, and we were like, yes, we should.
So these are all fakes that have passed through the RealReal's doors.
Yes.
And you caught them.
Yes. Since our inception, we've caught 40 million fakes to date, 40 million. Right now, it changes, but right now we're running about 5,000 a month that we're catching, that are coming through. So we were like, how could we explain to people what this is, what we do, and also why they should care, and also why fakes are an ambiguous question. Fakes are not a straightforward thing culturally, socially. Fakes come from a really interesting place. There's dupe culture. There's lots of stuff that we didn't want to minimize or say hey, that's bad. We didn't it wasn't a finger wag. It was a illumination thing. It was let's just talk about this because people don't talk about it. So we thought a good way to talk about it was to start with this question of does it matter? If you can't tell that it's real, does it matter if it's real? Does it matter where they come from or how they are made if they are presented to you in the exact same way that luxury products are presented? We were poking at that question. We really felt this is not a question only about fake product. This is a question about news. It's a question about technology. It's a question about art. It's a question about our humanity that's rampant everywhere.
It's everywhere. That's actually a really good point. I think this is a very cheeky way of speaking to something that's a much bigger cultural conversation, whether it's AI, whether it's deep fakes. Now we're in the conversation about people's own likeness and how we can use them in AI and what are the boundaries for that. Like you said about news, it's wild that we're now having to ask ourselves at every turn, is this real? Is this real? Is this real?
Exhausting.
Is this real?
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's really intense, right? Because you're that, like I was saying, in 2011, the fact that they saw that in 2011, we weren't really in the habit of asking ourselves that question, and now we really are.